All right. Question 1. Do not answer a different question. Voice Data PII Corp. Records customer voice communications, storing audio files in S3. They need to transcribe these audio files and remove any personally identifiable information, PII, belonging to customers from the text. What AWS AI services should be used? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Transcribe handles transcription and PII redaction natively. Amazon Transcribe can convert audio files into text. Importantly, Transcribe offers a PII redaction feature that can automatically identify and redact or mask personally identifiable information from the generated transcripts. By triggering a transcribe job with PII redaction enabled via a Lambda function when new audio files arrive in S3, the company can automate the process of creating PII-free text versions of their call recordings. Hey, stack lessons again. Today's batch is 10 questions, all covering Snowball data migration, AWS backup cross-region, and AWS budget actions. 6 seconds on the clock per question, then the answer and a quick explanation. Pause when you need to. Let's dig in. Count every one you get right. Your score matters at the end. Okay, question 2. Avoid the familiar but wrong answer. DB Retention Policies, Inc. is implementing new data retention policies for all databases on Amazon RDS. They must retain daily backups for a minimum of 2 years. Backups must be consistent and restorable. Which solution should a solutions architect recommend? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Manual snapshots work, but AWS Backup owns the full lifecycle. AWS Backup is a centralized and automated backup service. It allows you to create backup plans to define backup schedules, e.g. daily, and retention policies, e.g. retain for 2 years. You can assign resources like RDS-DB instances to these plans. AWS Backup ensures backups are consistent and restorable and manages their lifecycle, including transitioning to cold storage if configured and handling expiration, meeting the requirements with operational efficiency. All right, question 3. Read it carefully. AppWorks Limited is launching a new document management application hosted on 2 Amazon EC2 instances. This application requires permission to read from and write to a specific Amazon S3 bucket used for storing documents. How should a solutions architect configure secure access for the EC2 instances to the S3 bucket, adhering to best practices? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. IAM roles deliver temporary credentials, no keys embedded. The most secure and recommended method for granting AWS services, like EC2 instances, permissions to other AWS resources, like S3 buckets, is by using IAM roles. An IAM role associated with an EC2 instance, via an instance profile, provides temporary security credentials to the instance, eliminating the need to embed long-term credentials. Policies are attached to roles to define permissions. They are not directly attached to EC2 instances for this purpose. Here we go. Question 4. Reason from the scenario. Media Archive Solutions needs to move a large collection of video files, currently stored on an on-premises NFS system, to Amazon S3. Each file varies in size from 1 megabyte up to 500 GB, with a total dataset of 70 terabytes that is no longer expanding. The migration must be completed as rapidly as possible, minimizing the use of network bandwidth. Which approach best satisfies these conditions? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Speed plus zero network consumption. That means Snowball. For a 70 terabyte dataset, especially with large files, using AWS Snowball Edge Storage Optimized is the most efficient method to migrate data quickly while minimizing network bandwidth usage. AWS Snowball Edge is a physical device shipped to your location, allowing for high-speed local data transfer, after which AWS imports the data into S3. This bypasses potential network bottlenecks and costs associated with transferring such a large volume of data over the internet, or a direct connect link, which would still be time-consuming. Here we go. Question 5. The clue is not in the service name. Backup data transfer has 700 terabytes of backup data residing on network-attached storage, NNS, within its corporate data center. This data is subject to infrequent regulatory access requests and must be retained for 7 years. The company aims to migrate this data to AWS within a 1-month timeframe. Their existing public internet connection offers 500 Mbps 2 passes of dedicated bandwidth for this transfer. What is the most cost-effective strategy to migrate and store this substantial dataset? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. 700 terabyte at 500 megapixels takes 4 months, not 1. For transferring an extremely large dataset, 700 TB within a constrained time frame, 1 month, and over a limited internet connection, 500 megabit 6 senses, AWS Snowball Edge devices offer the most efficient and cost-effective method for the initial data ingest into AWS. Once the data is transferred to Amazon S3 using Snowball, an S3 lifecycle policy can be used to transition it to S3 Glacier Deep Archive. S3 Glacier Deep Archive is the most cost-effective storage option for long-term archival, 7 years, of data that is accessed infrequently. First 5 questions revealed 2 recurring instincts. Pick native managed service features before bolting on extra tools, and reach for Snowball the moment bandwidth math kills your deadline. Next up, question 6. Likely distractors ahead. REST API design needs to architect a REST API for a cache payback service. The backend application logic requires approximately 1 GB of memory and 2 GB of temporary storage for its computational resources during request processing. The application will also require that the data is persisted in a relational format. Which additional combination of AWS services will meet these backend compute and relational database requirements with the least administrative effort? Choose 2. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answers are option B and option C. Lambda holds the memory spec. RDS handles the schema. B. AWS Lambda is a serverless compute service that can run backend code in response to API gateway requests for a REST API. It can be configured with up to 10 gigabytes of memory and supports temporary storage, up to 10 gigabytes in the temp directory for Lambda functions not using EFS. This meets the compute requirements with minimal administrative effort as AWS manages the underlying infrastructure. C. Amazon RDS is a fully managed relational database service. It supports various database engines like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, Oracle, and handles administrative tasks such as patching, backups, and scaling, thus minimizing administrative effort for managing a relational database. It meets the requirement for storing data in a relational format. Next up, question 7. Anchor on the exact workload. Parallel data enrichment manages an analytics application where large amounts of semi-structured data are stored in an Amazon S3 bucket. The solutions architect wants to implement a system that can use parallel data processing techniques to process this S3 data more quickly. Additionally, the architect needs to enrich this S3 data by joining it with information stored in an Amazon Redshift database. Which AWS big data or analytics service is best suited for this parallel processing and data enrichment task? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. EMR Spark connects to Redshift and distributes the processing. Amazon EMR Elastic MapReduce is a cloud big data platform designed for processing vast amounts of data using open source tools such as Apache Spark, Apache Hive, Apache HBase, Apache Flink, and Apache Hudi. EMR excels at parallel data processing, making it well suited for quickly processing large datasets stored in Amazon S3. Furthermore, EMR clusters can connect to external data sources like Amazon Redshift, e.g., using JDBC drivers or dedicated Spark connectors. This allows for reading data from Redshift and joining it with the data being processed from S3 to perform the required enrichment tasks within the EMR processing job. This provides a powerful and scalable solution for complex data processing and enrichment. Athena is the go-to for S3 queries, but this question tests whether you know when it breaks down. Imagine you have 2 terabytes of JSON files sitting in S3. Every row needs to be joined with customer records from Redshift. Athena looks tempting. It's serverless and queries S3 with plain SQL. It even has federated queries to Redshift. But at that scale, federated queries can be slow and hard to tune. Amazon EMR, a managed cluster service, is where you spin up Apache Spark across dozens of nodes. Spark reads all your S3 files. Then it pulls data from Redshift using a database driver and joins everything in memory across the whole cluster. You control the parallelism, the memory, and the framework. The question rewards heavy multi-source processing. That's EMR's home turf. Now, question 8. Make the distractors prove themselves. Cross-region EC2 backup runs applications on Amazon EC2 instances in one primary AWS region. The company has a business continuity plan that requires backing up these EC2 instances to a secondary AWS region. They also need the ability to provision EC2 resources in this secondary region if a disaster occurs and manage these EC2 instances centrally from their primary AWS account. Which solution will meet these backup and DR management requirements most cost-effectively and with minimal operational overhead? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. AWS Backup is DLM plus cross-region in a single plan. AWS Backup is a fully managed backup service that centralizes and automates data protection across various AWS services, including Amazon EC2 instances. By creating a backup plan in AWS Backup, you can schedule regular backups of your EC2 instances. A key feature is the ability to configure cross-region backup, which automatically copies these backups to a specified secondary AWS region. This provides a cost-effective, as you pay for managed backup storage and operations, and operationally efficient solution for both backing up EC2 instances and preparing for cross-region recovery, all managed centrally from a single AWS account. Now, question 9. Pick the complete answer. Cross-region VPC.com, a global marketing company, has critical applications running in the App South East 2 region, e.g. Sydney, and the EWest 1 region, e.g. Ireland. Applications hosted within a VPC in the EWest 1 region need to establish secure and private communication with databases that are running within a VPC in the AP Southeast 2 region. Which AWS network design will effectively and securely meet these cross-region communication requirements for their internal applications? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Secure and private between VPC signals peering, not private link. Interregion VPC peering allows you to connect VPCs located in different AWS regions enabling private network communication between resources in these VPCs as if they were part of the same network. The traffic exchanged over an interregion VPC peering connection uses the AWS Global Backbone Network and does not traverse the public internet, ensuring security and often providing better performance than internet-based connections. After the peering connection is established, which requires a request from one VPC owner and acceptance by the other, you must update the route tables in each VPC to direct traffic destined for the peered VPC's CIDR block through the peering connection. Additionally, security groups in the destination VPC, App Southeast 2, in this case, hosting the databases, must be configured to allow inbound traffic from the source IP addresses or, more securely, the security group ID of the application servers in the US1 VPC. This provides a direct and secure method for cross-region VPC communication for internal applications. Let's slow down here. This question is really asking which tool connects what kind of network. Imagine you manage two offices, one in Sydney, one in Dublin. Your Dublin team needs to query a database sitting in Sydney. You have 4 tools on the table. The shortcut, ask what you are actually connecting. 2 VPCs in different regions, no offices in the mix. Interregion VPC peering is your answer. It stays on AWS's own backbone, never the public internet. If your on-premises data center is involved, Direct Connect or VPN makes sense. If you only want to expose one specific service endpoint, not the whole VPC, Private Link is the right tool. The trap is thinking VPN sounds more secure. VPC peering is already private. VPN adds complexity without adding security here. That is why peering wins. Let us keep moving. Question 10. Test each option against the full ask. Org budget control uses AWS organizations. They want to manage budgets for some of their AWS accounts independently. A critical requirement is to receive alerts and automatically prevent the provisioning of any additional AWS resources within these specific accounts if their allocated budget threshold is met during a particular billing period. Which combination of AWS services and features will meet these requirements for proactive cost control? Choose 3. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answers are option B, option D, and option F. Budget actions block provisioning. CloudWatch alarms only notify. B, AWS budgets allows you to set custom cost or usage budgets for your AWS accounts. You can define the budget amount and period. D, for AWS budgets to take automated actions when a threshold is breached, it needs an IAM role with the necessary permissions to perform those actions, e.g., permissions to apply an IAM policy or an SEP that restricts further resource provisioning. F, AWS budgets allows you to configure alerts, e.g., via SNS, when a budget threshold is met. More importantly, it supports budget actions. A budget action can be configured to, for example, apply a specific IAM policy to an IAM user group role, or, if using AWS organizations, apply a service control policy, SCP, to an account or OU, which can effectively restrict the ability to provision new resources once the budget is exceeded. This provides the automatic prevention mechanism. This one has a hidden third piece that most candidates miss. Let's break down the full combo. Imagine you manage 50 AWS accounts and one team keeps blowing past their $10,000 monthly limit. You want the account to lock itself down the moment it crosses that line. No humans in the loop. AWS budgets budget actions do exactly this. First, create a budget for the account. Then, create a dedicated IAM role, the role that budgets assumes when a threshold is breached. That role applies a deny policy, blocking new resource creation. When a limit hits, budgets assumes that role, and the block kicks in automatically. CloudWatch alarms can notify you, but they cannot block anything. Trusted Advisor flags issues, but it cannot enforce. Budget plus IAM role plus budget action is the only combo that actually stops the spending. 3 takeaways from this session. First, Snowball Edge wins whenever dataset size makes bandwidth math blow past your deadline. Second, AWS backup cross-region copies solve both the 35-day RDS cap and cross-region EC2 DR. Third, AWS budget actions require pre-created IAM role before they can automatically block new provisioning. Every one of these questions had a managed service waiting in the wings that handled the exact constraint, size, retention, or spend. That pattern recognition is the real skill. You're building it. Before the next set, a quick ask. Subscribing keeps these free and in front of new students, so if it helped, please do. Tell me in the comments how you scored and which questions you'd want more on. If there's a cert you're chasing that I haven't covered, suggest it below. And honest feedback on the pacing or the look is always welcome.